Warning, this podcast and intro, come to think of it, may contain rants and, given the nature of the transfer window, outdated information, even though I recorded it at 10:41am this morning. Anyway, here's the jingle. So, when I came up with the title for this episode, it was a tongue-in-cheek quip at the state of play after Saturday's collapse at home to Barrow, where Clough put Ollie Hawkins here, there and everywhere. Actually, come to think of it, it's no wonder he ended up in Gillingham. On that, the previous 48 hours transfer business is still aptly summed up by today's title, as when asked what's going on, my reply is, sorry, I haven't a clue. Join us over the next hour or so for lots of discussions. I think it's the first time ever I've done 2 pages of notes as we talk Barrow, bullshit, buying, selling, age ranges, injuries and a whole lot more in between. If you're watching the live feed, feel free to fuel the fire in the comments. Right, is this the Mansfield Matters podcast? I'm sorry, I haven't a clue. Yes, and true to form, as I said in the intro, things could happen between then and now, and they have. Nigel Clough has added another player to his squad early today. Callum Johnson arrives for an undisclosed fee from Ross County. More on him later. Hello and welcome to the Mansfield Matters podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield matters. And my God, does Mansfield matter tonight. I think, other than a special Christmas episode, we've got the most amount of panellists we've ever had in 6 series of the Mansfield Matters podcast tonight, because it's all been kicking off at Mansfield Town. Now, that includes some returning faces. The last time that we spoke to our first guest tonight, he lived the other side of Mansfield, had a all right internet connection, but used a MacBook and for some reason couldn't get his microphone to work and was quite often in delay. So let's find out if moving to the middle of nowhere into what can only be described as a mini mansion has made any significant changes to his internet connection. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 2023, let's say hello and welcome to the forgotten man, not Jordan Bowery, it's Nathan Edge. Hello, Nathan Edge.
Evening. As you
Way!
quickly find that's not an improvement. It's still delayed, but it is. So, I'm now. So,
it kind of works. It kind of doesn't. So, I mean, feel free if you want to stick around, or if you want to leave it for another week. It's entirely up to you. Maybe just sit there and we'll take the piss out of you. Whatever you want to do, mate.
Yeah. Cheers. I think until I get a cable to be my next thing to try, but it's the back, even if it's briefly anyway.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to see you. Just nod or shake your head, because I can only make out half of every other word that you say. Are you settled into the new house? That's a yes. Oliver and the missus okay? Excellent. Are you okay? Right. Right. We'll try and do some sort of sign language or whatever with you later on, and we'll see what happens as the show goes on. Yeah, that sort of sign language is great, mate. Well, from one man who's returning after a long absence to another, yes, let's say hello and give an appearance to Jason. Oh, no, it's not Jason. It is Cam Felton, who's trying to outdo my backdrop. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Jolly good. Right, talk us through this backdrop then. You've obviously been away trying to put together an IKEA cabinet, and as someone that's moved house recently, I know it takes about 6 months to build one. So what have you got going on?
Firstly, I'll take my microphone with me so you can see everything better.
You're going out of shot, so that's great. We can't see you.
Huzzah! I know.
I like that.
Even I don't like looking at myself. Anyway, I've been to IKEA. Sheffield IKEA is the worst place on earth.
Other shops are available.
Sheffield people are pig ignorant and rude. But so I've got a selection of memorabilia from shirts, which I know Nick will appreciate.
Yeah.
I then got a frame, which I got for Christmas off Craig and Nat. So thank you very much for that. That's got the Wembley photos.
Wait, hang on a minute. Don't give her any credit. I got that.
And then from Legends Live Part 2, we've got Carlisle frame down here, which you won't be able to see because I'll be sat there most of the time. A programme from the League Cup final with Huddersfield last season, a couple of other bits as well with Huddersfield, a footprint and a handprint of my little girl, and then just a couple of bits and bobs that my mum got me for last year and for Christmas this year, and then my stag, and then team sheets, Wembley thing, and more shirts. So
Jolly
very
good.
organised. And I've even got a light, like a proper staging light sort of thing. So really, and I've got my desk. I've got everything set up. Dual monitors. I'm sorted.
Yeah, well, we look forward to seeing you for like 2 more podcasts this season. Right, let's get rid of you. Let's go to one man who may have to dash off at some point in this podcast because he's about to become a granddad again at some point, very, very soon. He's been shopping in the club shop today and brought a nice little bit of Stag's baby memorabilia. It is, of course, Santa himself, Mr. Alan Wilson. How are you, mate? Are things all right?
Yes, not too bad. Still a bit snotty, but apart from that, not bad at all, Craig. Thank you, and good evening, everybody.
Sounded a lot better than what you did on match day the other day, Al. So, it's good to have you.
Can only be a good thing.
Good to have you fighting fit. Well, of course, I didn't know that Nathan, who actually has now disappeared off the stream, or Cam were going to come on tonight. So obviously I arranged guest. I knew Clive wasn't going to be coming to join us tonight. So we brought in Mansfield Matters podcast's latest sign-in, aka Nick of Mansfield Town Shirts, who's definitely been on more times than Cam this season. Welcome back, Nick. Another array of shirts as well in the background.
Yes, another random set, yeah. How you all right?
Very good, mate. Very good to see you. We'll delve into what shirts you've got later on. And we've also got on the podcast tonight, we brought him back after his appearance on the Christmas special to let him chew the fat on all things Mansfield Town tonight, rather than just answer my stupid questions. It's Podcast Predictions Chief Ben in his very own man shed. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, thank you. Feeling a lot better than I did last Saturday, so feeling a bit more positive.
Absolutely. It's good to see you. We'll get your thoughts on all things Stags throughout the show. As always, you guys at home, come and have your say on your team throughout as well in the comments. Right, let's get stuck in, shall we? I have literally got, for the first time in a long time of doing this podcast, sat today and did 2 full pages of notes of things to talk about tonight. I never usually do that. I know. Usually my notes look a little bit like that, which is a blank piece of paper. So yes, we've got plenty to talk about, plenty to delve into. And as always, if you're watching the live feed, feel free to come and have your say and get involved as well. Yes, absolutely. Let's kickstart the discussion then, shall we? I think, we usually try and start with all things match related, but I think it's probably a little bit wrong to do that this week. So we'll work backwards and go with the last 24 hours. And Ben, I'm going to come and start with you today because you sent me an email the other day. We always sort of chat online through email about podcast predictions and that, and you sent me an email, said, can I come on to the podcast this week? So I think there's a lot to talk about. Straight away, no hesitation. I said, yes, absolutely. Feel free to come on and have a little rant. Have your thoughts and feelings changed now that we've made 2 editions over the last 24 hours? Or is this still rant-style conversations bubbling away inside?
There's still anxiety. I mean, I think last Saturday is the lowest I've ever felt. I mean, I just thought Clough had lost the plot. I'm a big fan of Clough. I've always protected Clough, and I think he's the right man for the job. Blah blah blah. And I come out there Saturday, and I've never been so down. I'm like, what is happening? What he did with Hawkins and Barry. It's just like, what is happening to it? And we need to make some changes. I mean, there's obviously something wrong somewhere. If that's the manager, the players, whatever, we need to get some changes in January. I've been on the golf course today, and my phone's been going mental with obviously the new signings and whatever. We don't know a lot about these new signings, to be fair. We've all gone on Wikipedia and looked. They look promising. The Alfie Kilgore, he's injury prone, bit worrying. And I'm just a bit worried of why Callum Johnson's only been at Ross County for 6 months. Does he not like Scotland? I don't know what it is, but so it looks positive. I'm feeling a bit more positive, but until we see him on the pitch, we don't know, do we?
Well, one man who always has a positive comment, I reckon I could literally have a gun to his head and he'd still talk positive to me, is Alan Wilson. Did you pass on some form of your illness to Nigel Clough on Saturday, Al? Because it looked like the only way I can rationalise the decision-making process from the second half on Saturday is of a man who is dosed up on Nurofen, sniffing Vic at every opportunity, drinking Lemsip every 30 seconds, and just completely delirious, because that's how it felt. But did your illness sort of cast a cloud of that? Have you forgotten all about it? Because if so, I think I'd quite like to have had that illness, because it was not pretty.
It was just a very strange one, weren't it? We all must have been buoyant, like myself, after 30 minutes or whatever, 2-0 up, everything sweet, playing something like we used to play. And then they just hit admitted it was a fair strike when the chap hit it from the side to make it 2-1. But as soon as their number 10 came on, Craig, I turned around to Kieran and I said straight away, he's going to run the show. You could tell with his demeanour, everything about him. I know he got the second goal, then he got the third goal, but he just ran the show, and we'd got nothing to do. We couldn't cope with him, and that was the problem. One player changed the whole match.
Yeah, he certainly did, and I don't necessarily think it was one player which changed the match. I think it was one manager which changed the course of that match. Yeah, I'll rant about that later on.
Nick, that one goal just before half time changed the match. We went in 2-0. I don't think it would have been a goal. Just check. That's when Cloughie lost the plot, because he didn't know what to say after that goal went in, I think. Yeah,
fair point. Nick, Ben said before in his first comment about never feeling so low for a long time after the game. What were your thoughts and feelings after? Because I remember walking away from the game, getting soaked with the cold rain and thinking, I cannot believe the capitulation that I have just seen and the questionable decisions from Nigel Clough. I still can't get my head around it. I've tried to map it out on a wall. I've tried to sit down and think about every angle possible. I still cannot understand what happened on Saturday afternoon.
No, I think the first 43 minutes were the best we've played at home since Northampton in the playoffs. I thought that was the best we played for a long time. But even at 2-0, me and my dad both said that it will take us to be 4-0 up before I'm comfortable that we're going to win. And I don't think there's many other teams that are 2-0 up at home and cruising where you think we're going to lose this. The second that goal went in, my dad said we're going to lose now. Now, in any other team, you'd go, well, that's ridiculous. Don't be so pessimistic. Of course we're not going to lose. It was written in the stars. As soon as they scored that goal, you knew we were going to come out and start like a tractor, and we did. And then, the Clough's antics didn't help, where he started swapping players. God knows where. Bowery comes on, and all he had to do is bring Hawkins off for Bowery, and then all of a sudden Bowery's running backwards. Hawkins then runs forwards, then he goes backwards again. Then he looks at the manager and goes backwards. Then he ends up for. It was a strange. And we went 5 at the back. That was 2-2 when we went 5 at the back, which I didn't quite understand.
That's how they scored their third goal, because we weren't settled. We didn't settle quick enough, and they took
the man that we strategically sent back to shore up this amazing back line of 4 men
was at fault.
Was the man who put it in the net. So I just walked out thinking we're just going to finish mid-table. We're going to amble to the end of the season. Maybe these signings made it slightly better, but. Yeah, there was a lot of pessimism, I think, on my side and anybody else. I mean, it was just typical Stags. I mean, I'm not suggesting it's all Clough. It's happened under every manager we've ever had, where we've been, 2-3-0 up and it's all gone pear-shaped. But we're just so soft at the minute. I just think that the team last year at 2-0 up, conceding, would have probably just won 2-3-4-1. Whereas now, as soon as we concede, we may as well fold up and just give up. And we did.
Cam, it's an interesting debate where you put the blame. We'll come to some of the comments in a second. I don't know. I feel like we need to sort of address Saturday first and maybe get that out of the way, because I think a lot of things then sort of spiral on from that. I still cannot get my head around some of the decisions, and it sort of sparked a little bit more on social media. It's the first time really in Clough's tenure that we've started to see more Clough out sort of comments and a lot of sort of arguing and things like that. What's your perspective on it after Saturday afternoon? Because like Nick said there, I walked away from the game thinking this is a mid-table side at best. And to be honest, even given the new signings that we've made today, I still feel in that same mindset, because I think there's something deeper going on. More on that in a second, but first and foremost, your thoughts and feelings on Saturday, Cam.
A little bit just shocked and bewildered. I can't really pinpoint what went wrong. There was just that many things after half time that went wrong. And I mean, yeah, it started with conceding that goal. If we go in at 2-0 up, then we're comfortable, we look confident, and I think we'd be all right. But it's same old Mansfield. It's just it's like we've not got 45 minutes of concentration in us, or 40 whatever, nearly 50 minutes of concentration. It's just that one moment where we think, oh, game's done, like it's half time in a second. It's like we've switched off, and it's come back to bite us. It bit us at Walsall, conceding late there, and then conceding early again, just not being switched on from the restart, just like we were on Saturday. And it was just so disappointing, because the first half, other than conceding that goal, was fantastic. And you think we were looking at fourth in the table? But I think what doesn't help Clough and the team at the moment is the fact that how tight it is in League Two. 4th to 16th are separated by 5 points. So like Saturday, we finished. We at half time we were 4th in the league. By full time, we're 9th and completely out of the playoffs. So it doesn't help that the league is so competitive, and everybody, like, it just seems that everyone around us at the minute seems to be getting sort of like nicer games, and we're just playing teams that are around us, Walsall, Barrow back to back, and then Crewe are doing better again. So we've got to be switched on for that. But we're our own worst enemies. I think that's the problem.
I'm going to be honest. You've hit the nail on the head. We are our own worst enemies. You know, other teams and what they're doing, the points gap and all of that, that's an uncontrollable. We should only be focusing purely on ourselves. And the only thing that didn't help Nigel Clough and the players on Saturday afternoon was Nigel Clough and his coaching team. He has to take full responsibility for what happened on Saturday. I'd have walked off with my head in such a spin. You know, I think Nick summed it up perfectly earlier on. He went from, within the space of 3 minutes, Hawkins playing up front to playing centre-back to playing up front, Bowery playing up front to playing centre-back to playing wing-back. It beggared belief. And if you've got 11 players who just have no idea where they're supposed to play on the pitch, and a team like Barrow who are at that point scrapping to get their first victory in a while after a bit of a lull, it's a recipe for disaster. And for Clough to come out in the week and talk about playing well, he says we've played well against Walsall, we've played well against Barrow, we've played well in the last 3 or 4 games. For me personally, Ben, I've had to switch that video off. At times, I've thrown my phone onto the sofa because I just think he's talking absolute shit. I just cannot see where he thinks we're playing well. I personally don't think we are. I think we're nowhere near it. And I think the sooner that Clough comes out and says, actually, no, we're playing really, really badly at the moment and we need to shake our ideas up, I think then he'd gain a little bit of respect back.
We do. I mean, in those games, we would have a 5 or 10 minute spell and we're playing brilliant. I think the first half against Barrow, it was a good performance. But I think he's probably seen, well, we did play well for 10 minutes, we did play well for 15 minutes. It's coming out, we're playing well. It's playing well over 90 minutes, and we're not playing well over 90 minutes. We're losing concentration. We're not playing people where they should be playing. And Clough, I honestly think he just don't know what. He just looks at it, don't know what to do. And I think he tinkers for the sake of tinkering.
Yeah, it's trying to sort of, fix it. It's not properly taking the time to diagnose the problem. It's doing that old classic, turn it off, turn it on again and see what happens. Let's delve into some of the comments, then I'll come back to Nick and Alan and get some of their thoughts on things that have happened this week. Apologies if I skip over your comment. There are a lot of duplicate comments this week, given the nature of what we're talking about and what's happened over the last couple of days or so. Richard kicks us off tonight. Finally got players in the transfer window who who we actually need and who on paper should make a big difference. Was so deflated, depressed and confused after last Saturday, but feeling more positive now. Tom says Hawkins was a good player, but serious lack of mobility, needs pace around him. Oates and Swan way too far from him on Saturday. Might see Kellen playing further forward, maybe a 4-4-2 coming as well. Roy says, please stop this loving for Clough. It's the manager. He turns good players into crap players. Just go and bring in the Cowleys. A lot of talk about whether or not he should go, Nick. And to be honest, we're not at that point yet. We're not at the point where we need to change manager. We're not in a relegation dogfight. We're nowhere near, touch wood, cross fingers and all that, a relegation dogfight. And seemingly over the last 48 hours or so, we're making investments to try and strengthen our position. But what we are is hoisted by and hindered by the expectations set by last season. And I just think that maybe we need to scrub that out and look at a perspective for this season. What are we happy with? What will we be happy with at the end? Because I personally think if we finish outside the playoffs, we will have a change in management, but now is not the right time to do so. And seemingly, one of my thoughts, Nick, to be honest, was that Radford and Sharp wouldn't give him the checkbook to add players because they were thinking about potential change of management in the summer. But they've done so. They've given players 2.5 years deals. So it does seem like he's still trusted to go and do the job.
Yeah, I think he'll stay to the end of the season. I think you've got to give him till the end because, like last season, you could have a miraculous run. I don't see it at the minute, but it could happen. Is there anyone out there better than him? I know he tinkers and messes about, but he has got success at this level. I don't know what the Cal is, whether they even drop this far down. I don't know. But I think you've got to give him till the end of the season. The league's that tight, isn't it? That you're all, like Cam said earlier, you're 2 wins away from being 4th or a win away from being 4th and 2 defeats from 16th. I don't think changing the manager now is the best idea. I do think for a few seasons now, since we've had Evans, the Stags have been this weird where we haven't seemed to have buy loads of players because we've got this weird feeling that we might get promoted. So let's not go mental because we might get promoted and we might need more players. So then we tend to hold back, and it's always a bit presumptuous that we're going to be up there and we're going to be challenging. And I think we should be with the budget we have. I'm pretty certain, we're still paying players 3-4 grand a week from what we understand from what Clough said about Johnson, etc. You look at the team on paper, we should be up there. And I still think that Radford potentially, even if we didn't make the playoffs, may not change Clough, if I'm honest. They seem to have this. Clough seems to be the old-fashioned manager of the club. And the Radfords, I think, like that because then they can step away a little bit, which they tend to want to do, for various reasons. And they've left Sharp in charge, but he doesn't really get involved, it seems, certainly from what we see. Clough seems to be the man of everything. So he's perfect for them. He does a lot of stuff that they'd have to get involved with, it seems. But whether that's good for the club, I don't know. But for me, I'd give him the end of the season. If we don't finish in the playoffs, I think you've got to be asking serious questions.
I think it will also, Alan, depend on what other additions Clough makes within this window. He's hinted today when he's spoken about his 2 new additions that there are 1 or 2 more that will be coming in. We expect there to be 1 or 2 outgoings as well, probably likely to lose George Lapsley. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But is it a case of we're overreacting given the last few results? Is it a case of the expectations too high? Are we over dramatising it, or are we right? Are we right to be worried? Are we right to be frustrated? Where does Alan Wilson sit in that conversation?
I agree with what Nick said and yourself to a certain degree. I don't think it's time to get rid of him yet. Give him chance. I think there's only 2 things that I can see, especially from this season, not so much last season, but this season. It's his stubbornness with the size of the squad. If it have, people that keep, everybody, all of us included, can keep saying, 18 men, you get 4 or 5 injuries, it's not enough. But he's so stubborn in keeping that 18 players. But, even the likes of Jason Law, even when this player's injured, can't seem to get a game. Yeah. And that's the thing that infuriates me. It's the stubbornness with the size of the squad. And also, I think the players must take some sort of blame because 43 minutes, it wasn't Nigel that was on the pitch. wreaking havoc and whatever, being 2-0 up and we're doing really, really well. The players have got to take some blame as well, I think. But I definitely wouldn't get rid of him yet. Give him a chance and see if he can resurrect the season.
Let's have a look at some more comments. I'm sure we'll come on to the transfers in a second. Roger says, I'm sort of happy Hawkins has gone. Don't think he was that as quick enough as a defender. He's better as a striker, though, but not used up front. Let's delve into the Hawkins transfer then, because I think this is where the madness has kicked off over the last sort of 48 hours or so, Cam. Now, his sale, from a business point of view, does make sense. He's out of contract in the summer, although I would have personally given him a new deal, and I know Clough was looking to give him a new deal. Also, from a personal point of view, let's not forget that footballers are human beings, and that does have to be taken into context. He's got a young family. His family's from down south, so he's obviously moving back to an area which is near them, which is obviously better for his young family. And of course, from a financial standpoint, given his age of 30, Gillingham are throwing money at it left, right and centre at the moment. So obviously it's a better financial deal for him as well, given his age. That all makes sense and that's fine. But I think the issue for me over it all is I would have rather us have tried to invest in him a little bit. And if Gillingham are making him that offer, seeing what we can do to keep him there, because he was Clough's captain of sorts, because he'd captained most games in the absence of Ollie Clark. He was one of our best assets in terms of being able to comfortably play in two different positions. And I actually think, on a positive standpoint, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, him going up front and playing with Oates and Swan off him has given us a real dynamic. And we saw that in full effect against Barrow. I actually thought he played really, really well against Barrow, and I opened up a lot of space, and that's conducive to why we got the lead that we did. And I genuinely believe, even at 2-2, if he'd have stayed up there, we'd have gone on to win that game. It's only because he moved and it sort of went out of sorts a little bit. It was a little bit like Jenga. It all started to come tumbling down. And then Clough talks about when we bring in Alfie Kilgore, he says, we were bringing him in anyway. That's what infuriated me more, because that for me was the light bulb moment of, great, he comes in, he goes into centre half, Hawkins can go back up top, and all of a sudden we go from, being on the edge to having a little bit more of a solid foundation. So I'm just frustrated that we've not, as a club, tried to hold on to one of our best assets. I get the business side of it, I get the financials, but surely if we're trying to be a progressive club, we should have done more to fight to keep Ollie Hawkins, unless, of course, Cam, Clough and his recruitment team have a couple of aces up their sleeve.
It is a confusing one, because even if you consider Hawkins as a striker, we were still needing a striking option. Regardless of whatever happened, we needed another striker in, somebody that knows where the net is. If you look at Hawkins as a defender, even with Hawkins at the back, we still needed an extra body in. Now that we've lost Hawkins, yes, we've brought Kilgore in, but we are still, in my mind, one centre-back short. Because that leaves Perch and O'Toole, who are the only out-and-out centre-halves at the club that are fit.
One of those isn't a natural out-and-out centre-half in John Joe O'Toole, remember?
He's a CDM, isn't he? So,
yeah.
But obviously Hewitt can play there, but he's better sort of like out wide. And then obviously Harbottle's injured and we don't know how long he's going to be out for. So you think even with Hawkins, we're still one short. We've now lost Hawkins and we've replaced him, but that still leaves us, in my mind, one defender short. And especially if realistically, are we going to bring anybody else in? I'd like to think we are. And I know Mr. David Sharp has been a bit cryptic with his most recent tweet, saying thank you to Hawks. Delighted to get Callum and Alfie in, 17 days left in the transfer window, ... Thinking, right, so we're not done then, but what are we going to be doing? Because we definitely need a defender and we definitely need a striker. Do we need someone in the midfield? is an interesting one because we've always said we're very overloaded in the midfield. Clark's out injured. Hartigan's now out for the season. If we lose Lapsley, yes, we've got Law, but does that then leave us? Are we short across the entire pitch now that we've lost?
I think the debate for me, Ben, is more around, or not necessarily debate, but the alarm bells ring where when Clough's been speaking about Hawkins leaving, he still refers to him as a defender, and that's what got me. It's almost like we went down this one track of him being able to play in this one position. It's no wonder in the end that Hawkins probably did feel a little bit like, well, if I'm going to go to Gillingham, the one thing that they've said to me is that you won't play centre back, you'll play centre forward.
Yeah, I think it's Hawkins has gone. I think I completely agree with every word you said there. Hawkins been one of our most consistent players. People highlight a few mistakes, but a lot of players have made mistakes. But you notice his mistakes because he's in defence. Playing up front with Oates and Swan running around him, balls into him. It was going to be the future. So bring this Alfie guy in defence, put him up front. But then Hawkins goes, and if you read on his Twitter, he's very like, it's the best club I've played for in my football career. I loved it there, etc. Okay, you say that, and then he's got his finance and his kids and whatever. But I just think backward step Hawkins leaving. My personal opinion, you've got someone that can play in defence, and he's a decent all-round lad, and he was the captain in the last game. So if you're captain last Saturday, and then you're out this Saturday, there's something gone wrong, unless the money's just ridiculous from Gilly. We couldn't refuse it, he couldn't refuse it. But everyone's happy last Saturday. He's captain and whatever, and now he's gone. So,
is there something, Nick, that we perhaps missing? Because from me, I don't want to be, don't be accused of stirring the pot here and creating rumours which aren't true. I'll have a little bit of rant about rumours later on, but there does seem to be something which is niggling away. Like Ben sort of said there, he was captain on Saturday, and all of a sudden he's gone, and Lapsley all of a sudden has gone from being a really happy, positive figure in and around the dressing room, really settled at the club, to completely wanting away and not really being that involved. Is there something that we need to worry about? Is there something that we're perhaps missing?
I don't know. I thought that the one with the Hawkins, I thought it was potentially a last minute. They've just made a random bid out of nowhere and we've accepted it. But then the one thing from the Kilgore interview, that he said that he was watching the club train before a game that was mid-December. Was it early December?
Yeah.
So why did we have to wait until we sold Hawkins to announce that? Which then made me think, well, maybe it's because if this fella should have signed on the 1st of January, if we've agreed it with Bristol Rovers and he'd been at the training ground on the 6th of December or what it was, for me, the 1st of January, he should have played against Walsall. So we've held off until 2 hours after we've announced the Hawkins deal, which from a PR point of view is bizarre. Would have been better the other way around. At least give us the good news first. But they didn't. So that made me think, well, as a club then, we've had to wait until we've definitely got somebody off the books to bring somebody else in. Otherwise, we would have announced Kilgore last week. Because Bristol Rovers clearly weren't going to play him. He's been here early December. It made no sense to wait until 2 hours after Hawkins had gone. So that's made me think there's maybe more to the Hawkins. I don't know. I get the feeling it was just a random bid out of nowhere. But then were we holding off the Kilgore deal till we got somebody out the door? I don't know.
It's interesting.
I think we thought Johnson was going to be out the door before. I think now. I think we thought somebody was going to put a storm in bidding. And he was going to disappear and we can then bring Kilgore in. But I don't know. Everyone else
I know exactly. I know exactly what's going to happen with Danny Johnson. He's going to
be back.
I personally don't think that we'll see Danny Johnson playing a Mansfield shirt under Nigel Clough, but I also think that if he does come back, he'll either go out and loan out somewhere else, or he'll stay and be a bit part player, sub appearance here or there, the occasional start, and then we will lose him in the summer transfer window for absolutely nothing. It's clear to me, Al, that Nigel Clough doesn't want Danny Johnson at the club. He's a valuable asset at the moment, and we shouldn't be selling Ollie Hawkins to Gillingham. We should be doing our utmost to get Danny Johnson out the door because we're to get more for him and it's more beneficial for us.
Yeah, but you've also got to think, Craig. I mean, I'm only going through putting 2 and 2 together. I might be making 5, but didn't he actually, when he'd heard about the transfer business and whoever got in touch with him, didn't he actually put a transfer request in? Because that makes a different spin on the story, in my opinion. Because if he's put a transfer request in, what can Nigel do? He can offer him, a contract or whatever. But like we've said before, if they've doubled his wages like they're supposed to have done, what's the chap going to do? He's 30, 31. You only have so long in football, and you just can't blame the chap for going. But I can see where you're coming from about Johnson, because it is a shame because he scored 15 for Walsall, hasn't he? It's proved in the past. He knows where the net is, but it's obviously something's happened between Nigel and him, where there's going to be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, as well, I think it's one of those things as well. You mentioned there about the rumours of him putting a transfer request in and things like that. That is something which has annoyed me to the hilt this week, Ben, and you might have seen it on the Mansfield Matters Twitter. I noticed a couple of days ago, I think it was probably Wednesday, when the rumours were starting to fly about Hawkins going to Gillingham and Lapsley as well. I noticed a handful, and it is only a handful of tweets from supporters, and I use the term very, very loosely, who were, of course, saying, "Oh, I don't want them to go. I think they're snakes and all of that," and tagging them in it. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things for me is that we shouldn't be doing that. That's fueling rumours, and it just got under my skin and annoyed me. And that's what really, really grinds my gears about January. Rumours fuel everything, and one thing that Nigel Clough does is holds his cards very, very close to his chest, and seldom do we find out the truth about what's going off. So now there'll be a certain amount of people who think that Hawkins did hand in a transfer request, did chase after the money. We'll have no idea if that's true, but because based on hearsay and rumours, people will think that's true, and therefore will get on his back and will call him all sorts of names under the sun. I just don't think that's right, and it just annoys me about everything during January.
I'll say there is people that have commented on his personal stuff. So it's just like the money emoji. It's just like, come on, behave. it's pathetic, but
I mean, it's the world we live in now. Obviously, with all this social media, it gives a person this chance to say something and tag in that person. I mean, you could be down the pub in the old days and you might say something, but Ollie Hawkins would never hear it, or George Lapsley would never hear it. Now they can just sit at the desk on the phone and say at George Lapsley or at Ollie. And it's, I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to be a footballer, because you imagine on their Instagram the amount of DMs they get into there and being tagged on Twitter. And one rumor that's completely wrong could go on Twitter and everyone believes it. I mean, the amount of times people tell me this is fact, and it's not. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you saw it a little bit with the prime example was in the Wrexham documentary when Paul Mullen went from League One to the Conference. And yeah, he'd have got a nice little financial package, but he explained his reasonings for joining Wrexham on the show. And, he was talking about how actually it affected him from a mental health point of view and things like that. And I just think it's the same. But also as well, if you've got fans that are doing that plays straight into the hands of agents who are going, well, they don't want you anyway, and then getting in their heads. And it just adds fuel to an unnecessary fire, which shouldn't be put out. But also I want to address the fact that some people on Twitter took what I said in the completely wrong way and completely didn't understand the point I was trying to make. And those people that didn't understand that, you're the problem. You are the problem. Right, let's move on, because I could rant about that all day. Let's go back to some more comments. Jim says, I still think JJ would upgrade our backbone and resilience. Why, oh why isn't he involved? Come on to him a little bit later on with a group of players. I'll come on to that in a second. Talking about a managerial change, Tom says, never going to get rid of Clough this season, only contracts until the end of the season. and only 5 or 6 points off the automatics. He's made weird decisions lately, but deserves this season. Yeah, I agree with that. Simon says, "Is this the end of the beginning, is this the end or the beginning of the end for Bowery? Hopefully, playing more forward." Tom says, "We hugely miss Clark in the middle. Does the gritty side in the middle better than anyone in the team?" Yeah, I agree with that. Simon adds, "Something doesn't feel right in the club, whether it's the players, investment, management team, playing style or board, no togetherness. The terraces are starting to fall flat." Agree with that as well. Richard, "Nowhere near as good as we were last season. We have gone backwards in terms of performance when we should have kicked on." Roger says, "Gordon had a really bad game last Saturday. Too many good positions wasted by a blocked or poor cross. I'd drop him, but he'll play because there's nobody else." Now you see, now there is, because now we've brought Callum Johnson into the picture, who plays right back, right wing back, right side centre half. I actually think the writing could be potentially on the wall for Kellen Gordon, Cameron. I'd hate that, because I think Gordon has still got a lot of potential to give, but for whatever reason, like a number of others, it doesn't quite seem to click under Nigel Clough. Maybe it's just because he's not tried him as a centre forward yet. Still time.
I don't think it's that. I just think Gordon. I don't think it's the fact that Gordon's not trying, but I just think that, yeah, like comments and whatever have said, Gordon is not performing the way that we know he can. He's not able to deliver across like he used to be able to, and it's like just all these injuries are now actually starting to take its toll, and just be like, he's not as fast as he was. He's not getting forward as much as he used to, and his deliveries are absolutely dire, other than maybe the odd one or two, and it's frustrating because we're not seeing the best in him. And I don't know whether that's a confidence thing, or whether he's just not fully fit, or what. I don't know, because you'd say a couple of seasons ago, he was probably one of our best players and one of our most valuable assets. You think he signed for us on the back of winning promotion with Lincoln, and that won't have been a cheap fee from Derby, because I imagine Lincoln would have more than happily signed him on a permanent transfer at the end of that season, if not taking him back on loan again. But so we'd have forked out a decent amount of money, but he's just not performing. I think there's just a lot of players that just aren't 100% with it. I think Maris is very hit and miss at the minute. I think that's just because he's been injured. Obviously, Ollie Clark's missing through injury. Stephen Quinn has been another one that's just been completely off of this season. He did well on Saturday, obviously getting his goal and just really making a nuisance of himself. Oates is obviously just injured from earlier this season, and he's getting better and getting back to what he used to be. And it's just overall, I just think it's like we've still got a major hangover from Wembley.
I think that hangover is actually that is starting to kick in probably since start of December. I thought, we sort of shrugged it off early doors, but as the season's gone on, it's sort of been one of those which has crept up on us. And I think it brings me nicely to my next point, Alan, and it's there was a red flag comment for me from Nigel Clough on the statement about Ollie Hawkins leaving. And it's the words, "There's a desire to go with a younger squad." Now, there's two things for that. Well, there's a couple of things for that as well. Number one, where has that directive come from? Because Nigel Clough, when he came in, he instilled the directive of getting experienced players through the door, because it's clear that the young players wasn't working. And if that's the directive, what age is the cut-off point? Ollie Hawkins was 30 years old, and we sell him to Gillingham. I still think we could have offered him another year, another 2 years, and still got something decent out of him. But I had a little look through the squad, the other players in the squad, and looked at the ages. James Perch, 37. John Joe O'Toole, 34. Jordan Bowery, 31. Ollie Clark, 30. Stephen McLaughlin, 30. Lucas Akins, 33. Stephen Quinn, 36. Based on that, and based on if we're using Ollie Hawkins as the benchmark to get a younger squad, we have got to therefore replace 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players When are we doing that? Are we doing that now? Are we doing that in the summer? How does that come around? Because we don't know what league. There is no sense to that, to changing that directive in the middle of a bloody season. That's more mental to say that than it was to bring Bowery on, put him up front for 2 minutes, put him at the centre back, put him at wing back, and then get him collecting the fucking goons.
Well, he was probably hoping to bring the average age down because one's 24 and the other one's 26, aren't they? So I mean, that's brought the average age down slightly. But it's probably a matter of course, depending on where we finish or how well we do this season. Like you said before, has he got other irons in the fire that's the same sort of age? We don't know. I mean, I don't go on Twitter and stuff like that. I haven't got a Twitter account, but I did see about 3 weeks ago about this Gilmore. There were 3 teams after him, weren't there? There was all us, Colchester, and I can't remember the other team. So, I mean, if I've even seen it, and I'm no Twitter expert, other people have seen it, so it must have been banded about.
It's just a strange one, the old age thing for me, Ben, because like I say, if we are using that as a directive, we've got to replace 7 players. It just seems a little bit strange that we're changing that standpoint now, because Nigel Clough has always said that this is the hardest window to get players in. It's a very, very weird thing. It's almost like he's been given a different task by the board. We've gone with what you said, Nigel, and brought in some experience. We fell short at Wembley. So what we need to do to take us to the next step is to completely go the opposite way and bring in a younger squad. It's daft at this point.
Is this what we've got David Sharp for? Because maybe he's just put this in this one decision, because I don't think he's done anything else while he's been there. So maybe he's just come in, made that decision. There you go, Cloughie, that's hard work for you. But it is the right to go. Is we do need to make it a younger squad. That's 100%. Whatever they've done in the past, we do need to go that way. But to do it in January, it's more of a full season job. When you do clear out 7 or 8 players and bring 7 or 8 in January. I mean, what we're going to do, we brought 2 in. They might bring another 2 in, but they will get rid of the same amount. If we bring 4 in, 4 will go out. And I worry for people like Barry, Gordon. I think we know Lapsley's going. And it's just like, I'd rather them just add players, but I know financially it's a business, whatever. But we've got a small squad. Let's just get 4 in, and that's it. They'll carry on. But yeah, it's if people like Perch, I mean, he could go tomorrow. I mean, he's not been very good this year anyway. I mean, John Joe Toole, I mean, it's just, he's in his 30s, he's not playing. They're the players they probably should be getting rid of to bring new people in, but they're not assets. They're not going to get money for them. So
that's what frustrates me, though, Cam, because 12 months ago, we gave a 33-year-old John Joe O'Toole a really good long-term deal. So he's going to be Italy's, probably James Perch's age. And now you go in with this whole, we want a younger squad. We still don't know what the cut-off is. Obviously, we're summarising that 30 as the standard age because it's been said in a statement about a 30-year-old leaving. But if you're one of those players, Perch, O'Toole, Perch is probably the exception, Quinn as well, because they know they're at the back end of their careers and they'll be looking for the next logical step. But O'Toole, Bowery, Clark, McLaughlin, they've still got a good 2-3 seasons in them at this level. But if you're reading that statement, you're surely thinking that you're probably getting your agent on the phone and going, what's going off here? I can't get me head around. And when you're getting the results that we're getting, you add that into the mix. It's not a motivational thing, is it? It's a very, very strange situation to be put in. But I wouldn't like to be one of those players, would you?
No, I can understand Clough's standpoint as in getting rid of not getting rid of younger players, but sort of like molding the squad the way that he wants, because players like Tyree Sinclair weren't good enough. Alistair Smith wasn't good enough, and he's done all right since being at Sutton. He did well last season. He's not really done anything this season. James Clark was probably about the only disappointing one that I think we've let go. But yeah, was it just that our young players weren't good enough? He wants a younger squad, but our young players weren't good enough.
I don't want to cut you off. Sorry for cutting in. But the thing that you said there is, you've listed off all these players. That's another thing which is sort of have been highlighted in my mind. Every time he's had the opportunity to use a younger squad and develop from in-house or bring in younger players, he's failed to do so. In fact, actively, he's been against playing younger players. Jason Law is probably the best talent we've got at this club, yet constantly we fail to send him out on loan. We fail to give him game time. We fail to give him any hint of opportunity. They sit there and they talk about him in the press all the time or with the fans and go, yeah, he's great. We absolutely love him. Well, play him then. Give him the opportunity. Will he get the opportunity tomorrow? Will he get the opportunity this season? I still don't think so, which is why I don't personally believe, Ben, that this directive of we're going with there's a desire to go with the younger squad. I don't think that's from Nigel Clough whatsoever. I think that's like when you go into work, that's the objective he has to work to. I foresee this being the start of a crack. Shoot me down if you want to, people. This is an opinions-based show, and my opinion is that the directive has not come from him, and I think this could be the little chink in the armour which starts to crack the egg.
Oh.
Well, I think the egg's cracking. the egg's been cracking for a while. I think we need to give this another week. We just need to see how it all plays out. Who comes in, who goes out. I think there's going to be a lot more surprises still to come in this window. But who's making the decisions? Are these Clough players that Clough wants, or are these players that other people are bringing in? But with Mansfield, like everything, we'll never know because we never get anything out of Mansfield of actual fact.
And again, that is spot on. It's that thing of we get zero communication of where this is coming from. The next time we'll have a fans forum will probably be in February, late February, early March, after the transfer window, and there's nothing at all other than a free agent who's probably been without a club for best part of a year that we can do on a transfer front. So we therefore are in that safety bubble of this is what we've got, this is what we deal with in the here and now. A little bit more clarity, a little bit more clear communication from those at the top, or even Clough himself, would be absolutely fine. And I think it would alleviate a lot of the stresses, a lot of the worries, a lot of the debates which we've been having over the last 53 minutes on this show, Alan. And I think we deserve a little bit more clarity and a little bit more clearness. Crawley fans are obviously unhappy with the way that their club is being run at the moment. And I would be as well if I was in their situation with the change of managers, selling the best assets and things like that. The chairman getting involved, the co-chairman being like the assistant manager for a game. I would be as well. But one thing he did do was do a video by the club with explaining his reasonings behind it. When was the last time we heard from somebody other than Nigel Clough to give us a directive and give us a clear communication pattern and strategy over where our club, the club that we're investing our money in by buying tickets, season tickets, merchandise, the one that we have invested in by getting the extra season tickets and driving the profile of the support of the club on, where's the directive about where we're trying to go? Don't keep us in the dark.
I'm going to say, well, there hasn't been anybody, has there? There's only Andy Garner done a couple of interviews. That's about it. Other than Nigel, like you said.
Briefly.
Go on. I was just going to say it was David Sharp when we had the other forum telling us everything they were going to do, but that was mainly about tickets, weren't it? How we was going to change the ticket system. There was nothing else about anything.
Absolutely. We briefly lost Nick for a while, but we've managed to I've been round to his house and we've dragged him back on. I went round to borrow some milk and got him back on the stream. Nick, we've just been debating there about this directive or the quote, should I say, from Nigel Clough on the sale of Ollie Hawkins. There's a desire to go with a younger squad. We were debating the cut-off age and those players who are below that age and whether or not we should have some more clear, concise communication from those other than Clough over the directive of where we're trying to go. What's your thoughts and feelings on it? Should we have a little bit more clarity, a little bit more communication, or should we just trust in the process? I think you're muted yourself. Can't hear you. We can't hear you. You have to get a notepad and start scribbling it on the screen. I don't know what's going on there. We'll try and get him back. I'll unmute you and mute you again. I think try now. Try speaking.
Hello.
Now. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, it's Craig's fault.
It was. I must admit, I'd unmuted myself. No, apologies for that. I have a toddler who's decided that throwing up was a great thing to do at this time of the night.
All right.
Yes, no, she's fine. Yeah, I think the age thing's an interesting one. I think the biggest telltale was when we played Swindon. I think I checked on an app that the average age of our squad was 29 point something, and theirs was 23. And I think you could just tell the difference. I think we do need a younger squad. I mean, I'm looking back to past successful teams. You really want 2 or 3 in your 11 to be experienced, done it before, and then the rest of them you want a bit of a mix of younger players and players that are on the way up rather than on the way down. And I think we seem to have somehow done the opposite of that. And we've ended, he says he wants a younger squad, yet we've signed, Akins and O'Toole. I know they were very successful last season, but, when he signed like Murphy in the summer and Akins in the summer, they weren't young lads, were they? And he hasn't really signed any young lads. He's always signed players sort of 25 and above generally. But yeah, I think we need a few younger faces. I don't think would hurt, certainly on the legs side of things. But yeah, in terms of transparency, it's a difficult one. You don't want them to tell you too much because then obviously everyone else hears about what they're planning and what they want to do. But it would be nice to know a bit of a direction for me in terms of travel and what we're going for. What sort of style do we want to play? What formation do we want to play? And then you can tailor your signings towards it.
Hopefully you didn't hear me shouting at the dog then.
We saw the dog.
No. We saw the dog. Yeah, no shouting.
I muted myself. I didn't think it worked because you sort of
podcast dog. Get him on. Yes. Get him on.
No, he's gone now. He's buggered off to Melbourne. I don't know what his problem is, but there you go. Maybe he was just angry and annoyed that we're not getting some clarity and communication. Who knows? Right. There is so much more we could talk about. I genuinely tonight could sit here for a good 2-3 hours and debate everything that's going off. But we've still got a long way to go. I think we've still got, 17, 18 days left of the transfer window. Anything could change. I think the elephant in the room, though, before we sign off tonight and do podcast predictions, Ben, has to be George Lapsley, because there are rumours circulating. And again, it's that word rumours, which I absolutely hate at this time of year. But they're starting to get stronger and stronger and stronger with more respected and more journalists who seem to be in the know, tweeting and talking about it, that a move could be happening in the next 48 hours or so, with him also going to join Ollie Hawkins at Gillingham. What's your take on the Lapsley situation? Because it's a little bit different from the Hawkins one, because he's made it actively clear, or via Nigel Clough, it seems that he's made it actively clear, or his agent has at least, that he doesn't see a career for himself at Mansfield. If that's the case, and if you were him, surely you'd be wanting to move up the league ladder to someone who is either in the top 3 of League 2 or stable in League 1. You wouldn't be wanting to go to a team that are, struggling at the bottom of League 2. All right, they might have a push next season, but that's a sideways move, surely. Surely we're the more progressive club than Gillingham, because if we're not, there's more alarm bells to be rung there.
I mean, Lapsley's definitely going. I mean, I don't want him to go. I think he's been a brilliant player for us, but you just hear that much. I heard the rumour a few days ago about him going to Gillingham, and I just laughed at it. There's no way George Lapsley's going to go to Gillingham. That's not going to happen. I'm telling everyone now. I think not go to Gillingham.
I think the only thing
go to a Derby or whatever.
I'm going to say Derby were mentioned. Also, it was mentioned Ipswich.
Yeah.
Any of those two, any of the two latter clubs there, Derby, Ipswich, you stand up, you applaud, you go, Laps, thanks so much for the service. And because we get a good fee, we can negotiate probably a sell-on and promotion clause and things like that. And that's exactly the type of transfer business that the Stags will be doing. But honestly, in my heart of hearts, Cam, I can see the headline, Lapsley sold to Gillingham. I can see it because Mansfield are that ridiculous.
The only thing with Gillingham, I think if he does go, it'll be the exact same reasons that Hawkins have gone. Is because they'll have bettered the money, but also he's from that way. Obviously, he came through Charlton's academy. He's from that side of London. So from a family standpoint, obviously, when he signed for us, he didn't have his little girl So it made that thing much easier. Housing wise, he could do whatever. But now it's like you've got all these different things to play into. Does he want to go back down towards sort of like where his family are? Maybe it's exactly the same as Hawkins, if I'm honest. If he does go.
Right. Again, I understand that, and I appreciate that from a personal point of view.
Personally, I think it's a backwards step. You've got to think Mansfield this season. We've realistically, if we get back onto a decent bit of form, we've still got promotion this season within our reach easily. They're fighting relegation.
Yeah, here's the difference for me, Alan, on that. Hawkins, you let go. He's 30 years old. We get a fee for him. It's a good bit of business, and it's good for him on a personal level as well. But Lapsley, he's got a career ahead of him. He's got a good career ahead of him. What is he, 24-ish? 25, 24, 25?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
At that age, that's a player that you want to progress. He's one of our best players. I think he's in the top 3 of our best players. Surely you don't go out of your way to give Hawkins a new deal. You have a cut-off point. You'd like him to stay, but you know that it's a limited time with him. There's still time for Lapsley to grow and become a good club player. If you were the Radfords, if you were David Sharp, Alan, would you be saying to Nigel Clough and Simon Clough and the recruitment team, do whatever you need to do to keep him here? Because in a year's time, or in the summer, or even next summer, so 2024, he'll be even more of a valuable asset to us. Do we have to think long-term strategy, or are we literally just going pound signs, pound signs, pound signs?
No, a long-term strategy, but it all depends what sort of communication he's had with Nigel or, David Sharp or whoever, doesn't it? Because he's obviously gone to him and Nigel's gone to him with his new contract. And didn't he say when he tried it, he forgot the first one and then he upped it, he gave it it was a better offer, if you like. And he still said no to that. And I think was it the next interview when he said, well, Lapsley's on his way out or, or whatever, words to that effect. So how does George Lapsley feel? Has he had enough with Mansfield? Because he's certainly not been the same player since all these rumours started, in my opinion.
And Nick, how do his teammates feel knowing that one of their best players, one of their good friends is on the verge of going? He's asked for something, he's not got it. Are they sharing the same agent? Are they thinking, well, if he's not getting it, I'm not going to get it? It starts that chain reaction.
Yeah, it does, because the dressing room, obviously, they're stronger with their mates who they're playing with than they are with David Sharp, Nigel Clough, etc. If I was Lapsley, I'd just stay at the Stags till the end of the season and get an absolute pound signs at the end of it when a club hasn't got to pay a fee, so they'll pay him more money. And he could say to the Stags, look, if you get promoted, I'll sign a contract. If you don't, I'm off. And he could spend the next 6 months negotiating an absolute massive contract with a Derby or an Ipswich. I don't even know if Derby can sign players. I
don't think they can.
I don't think they can.
I don't think they can pay a fee. I think they can sign them free, but I don't think they can pay a fee. So, if I was Derby, instead of paying him 4, I'll pay you 7 in the summer. I don't know.
See, yeah, that's where the issue.
If I was him, that's what I would do. But
that's where the issue is, because obviously he's nearly at the end. He could actually turn around and sign pre-contract terms with anybody now, and we don't get anything for him. Yes,
same with Danny Johnson.
Season, but exactly the same.
This is if we do sell Lapsley, it's the least amount of money we will ever get for him, because why would clubs pay now? If you're another club looking elsewhere, you'd say to him, let's pay you more in the summer. Hang it out for 6 months. We're not losing out.
I genuinely think we have dropped the ball on Lapsley. We should have done more in the summer to get a retainer on, to trigger, whether it's against his will or not, to trigger a clause which puts another year on his contract, which means that we get a better financial settlement. Because I can see what will happen now. We'll either sell him for below value, or we'll keep him to the summer. He won't play to the best of his ability because he knows he'll go for sod all in the summer window. This is why I hate the transfer window, to be honest. And it's frustrating. I guess the proof will be in the pudding tomorrow, Ben, whether or not he's named in the 11. Because whilst he's a Mansfield player, regardless of what's going off the pitch in terms of contract negotiations, if he's available for selection, you'd be foolish not to, wouldn't you?
The bench, because he was on the bench last game. We all know Clough's stubborn, and even though Lapsley's one of our best players, if he's not sitting right with Clough, he ain't going to be in that 11. So I don't think I would start Lapsley, even even if he was leaving next week, I'd start Lapsley. I don't think Clough and Mansfield will start Lapsley.
It's same with the DJ, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's same situation really with DJ. He's coming back. Is he actually back in Mansfield now? Do we know?
No, he's got one more game at Warsaw. His loan is up on the 15th, so he'll be back with us Monday. But again, will he train? Will he do this? Will he do that? Who knows what's going to happen? We are rapidly running out of time. We could, like I said, we could talk for another 2 hours. Make sure you join us next week for probably another discussion on this sort of trailer thought. But we have one more thing left to do on the show before we sign things off, and that is, of course, podcast predictions. Crew at home tomorrow, managed, of course, by a former Stag in Lee Bell. Now, Nick, have you got a former Lee Bell match-worn shirt?
No, I haven't.
So we know where we'll see you tomorrow. Then we'll see you outside the main entrance trying to get hold of him, will we?
Yeah, trying to get one. Yeah. No, I haven't. I haven't got a Lee Bell one. I have got a theme tonight, which I know we've not got much time. I will give people. I'll give you all 10 seconds to get the theme, and the players are McDonald, Clements, Hassel, Brown, and Briscoe. That's you haven't got long to guess, but there is a theme for all those names. There is something that links them all, other than the fact they play for Stags and I own one of their shirts. Anyone got any ideas?
I don't like this. I do the quiz, not you. Not on the.
I'll give you one clue. It's to do with appearances.
Is it over 100 appearances?
It is indeed.
Yeah. I know Simon Brown has.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. But yeah, that's the link to them all, is that they've all made over 100 appearances. So I'm trying to find a tedious link every week, but that was the one I could come up with.
Is Mac still at Gillingham?
Yes, he played. Was it Leicester they play in the FA Cup?
Yeah,
he played against them. Yeah.
Are you selling that McDonald's shirt? I'll buy it.
I think it's one of the green ones on eBay. I think someone's wanting like 200 quid for it.
How are you getting on with the Dave Artell one?
I'm good friends with another collector, Michael, who I got a lot of my shirts from when I started, because he knew someone who was selling theirs, and that's kind of why I started. And he lives probably just about as close as you do to me. And he was bidding on it because I've got a couple from the Cardiff game. I've got the Pilkington one. I've got Andy White's, and he wasn't a sub, but I've got his shirt with the embroidery on it, etc. I've got another. So I didn't bid on it. He put a bid in up to £210, thought he wouldn't win, and no one's outbid him, and he won it last night. So technically I can go and see it because it's down the road. But I was telling him last night that no one's going to outbid you, and he kept asking me to share it, and I refused because I thought I wanted him to win it, and now he's won it. So it went for 210 quid, which is quite a lot of money to raise, which is great. But yeah, it's 210 quid that went for. But yeah, it was a bit annoying because I obviously messaged random players. Dave Artell replied back to me the day after it went up for auction, saying that he would have sent it to me, but he posted it on the same morning. So I missed out by that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, at least 210 was a bit much for me on that one.
Yeah. Well, the important thing from our perspective, from a podcast point of view, is you've got to weigh in. You've got half a door open with Dave Artell, who's another one on the list. Right. Anyway, I digress. We can't keep you for much longer. Ben, as soon as you're on the podcast again, been great having your input today. Please do come back and debate with us another time. But of course, you are the podcast predictions admin, king, leader, whatever you want to call yourself, whatever title you want to give. Give us a quick update, if you would, as to where things stand after last week's horrendous throwaway at home to Barrow.
So last week, basically, last week there's only people got a point, and that was Cam Felton, Nathan Edge, and Rob Siddons. So nothing's really changed. But we've got Nathan Edge and Cathy Owens in joint 9th, JS in 8th, Kiwi Stag, Adam Cunt, Steve Naven, Clive Park and David Shetliff all in joint 3rd, Roger King in 2nd, and Alan Wilson still on top by 1 point.
As if.
Can't believe that. I really can't believe that.
Ben, is Nathan ahead of me?
Nathan is above you by 2 points.
Oh,
I don't know how you've let that happen.
Great.
Joke.
Nathan will be back on there.
Not been on the podcast for about 6 months. He barely puts his predictions in on time. I sometimes let him get his prediction, include his predictions, because he's my mate and that. I'm going to start putting down false predictions for Nathan because, yeah, I'm not having it. Not having it.
1 point
Anyway.
Ooh. Come on. Got to catch you.
If Cam beats me on podcast predictions this season, Cam can host and produce the podcast next season because I am done.
Bizarre.
It's a bit harsh. I'm saying I'm winning. I don't know how.
I am done. Look, Alan, I've got a lot of respect for you. You know, you're Santa. You're a club legend. I can't be doing with Cam, who has made zero effort this series to get involved with this podcast. Turns up when he wants. Messages me like 5 minutes before when I'm making my cup of tea. Can you come on the stream and check my equipment's working? If he beats me, I'm done. I'm done. I've had enough of it. Can't be doing with it. Right, come on then. Let's. I'm joking, of course. Cam will never host this podcast. Right. Ben, we'll start with you then for podcast predictions this week. What are you going for? Crew at home, 2 new players, of course, without Ollie Hawkins, but you know we've got to bounce back. So prediction, please.
You still got to always go for the win. I don't know if it's my head or my heart that's saying it, but 2-0 to Mansfield, and we're going to keep the 2-0 and not lose 3-2. So 2-0 to Mansfield.
And the goal time?
Oh, sorry, that will be 53.
53rd minute, excellent. Right, come on then, 1 point behind me, Felton, trying to outdo me on the backdrop, trying to steal the podcast from underneath my nose. Come on, what have you got for me?
1-0 win. 63rd minute.
Alan, I'm going to go to you next.
3-1 win. It's going to be a really good afternoon tomorrow afternoon, and it's going to be the first goal will be in the 28th minute.
Nick, you're up next.
I think the only way you're going to beat Cam is if you just copy him every week. You're guaranteed to stay a point in front, aren't you? That's got to be a tactic, hasn't it? Your mate's with Ben. He can text you what I've done.
Yeah. So anyway, your prediction.
I'm going to go for 3-2 because it can't be to 0 because we just capitulate. So I'm going to go 3-2 win.
Oh.
New defenders, Nick. New defenders.
Yeah, you'll probably play him up front.
Goal time,
3-2.
please.
I'm going to go for 31.
31st minute. I can tell you that earlier today, Clive went for a 1-1 draw in the 18th minute. Nathan, of course, yet to put his prediction in. Shock horror. I'm sure he'll do that at 2 minutes. He'll do it at 2. He'll do it at 1 hour and 2 minutes before kickoff tomorrow, just to spite me. You know what? My head says that we will lose and that our misery will continue. But Mansfield always matters, and I'm also going to go for a 1-0 win, and I'm going to go for the 14th minute, and I think we're going to be on the ropes, and I think our new defenders are going to sort of help us across the line. So make sure you get yours in. The link is live now. It's in the description as always. You've got to do it 1 minute and an hour and 1 minute before kickoff tomorrow afternoon, and that's about it. Right, final thoughts before we wrap up tonight. It's been a really, really good discussion. Really enjoyed it this evening. Are Mansfield done in the transfer window? One word answer from you all. I'll start with Cam.
No.
Ben.
No.
Nick.
No.
Alan.
No.
Possibly. Also,
what's some splinters?
No, absolutely. Also, you know, we spoke about it at the top of the show, the clough in, clough out sort of thing. We've got to. Should we tomorrow start with a brand new piece of paper, almost like it's a new season? We've had 2 defeats so far in 2023. If we put it right tomorrow, is all forgiven? Nick?
No.
Ben?
Possibly. No. Yes.
I'm just going to say that, Ben.
Alan?
Possibly.
Cam?
Ish.
I'll tell
Bring
you
back an old one.
I'll tell you at the end of the season, because right now, I'll tell you this. I am not feeling galvanised. We really do need to solidify things before things get toxic. There's a hat-trick. We'll see you next week. Do you know what? After all of that debate and discussion, I still don't think I've got the answers. Let's hope that Nigel Clough has tomorrow when the Stags welcome Crewe Alexandra to One Call Stadium. Don't forget to get involved with podcast predictions. The link that you need is in the description, and you must do it no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kickoff. You know what to do by now. As always, my thanks to you guys at home for watching and to listening as well. And of course, my thanks to the Mansfield Matters podcast panel. We'll see you again next week, quite possibly on Sunday, or it'll be this time next week on Friday. Stay tuned to our social media to find out when. To be honest, it'll probably depend on how we get on tomorrow afternoon against Crewe. Right, that's it. I'm off to try and, map out what on earth has happened over the last week or so and try and get some perspective and prepare for match day tomorrow. Who'd be a Mansfield Town fan, eh? We all would. Do you know why? Because Mansfield always matters. Goodbye.